Welcome to The Deep Dive, your shortcut to becoming well-informed quickly and thoroughly. Here we sift through stacks of sources, articles, and research, extracting the most important nuggets of knowledge and surprising insights, all tailored just for you.
And today, we're embarking on a really insightful exploration, a true deep dive into Paul Miller's powerful book, The Pathless Path, Imagining a New Story for Work and Life. This isn't just a simple summary, though. Our mission is to journey into the very heart of why conventional paths so often leave us feeling, well, unfulfilled, and importantly, how we might bravely envision and then actually forge a genuinely alternative and more meaningful way of living and working.
That's a crucial mission, because the core question Miller's book grapples with, and it's one that resonates with so many of us, is this. Why do countless individuals feel stuck or profoundly unfulfilled, even when they're achieving what society defines as success? What does it truly mean to find a way of working and living that resonates deeply with who we are, rather than just conforming to some external predetermined script?
Precisely. And to fully unpack this, we'll start by delving into the author's deeply personal journey, his own experience of feeling adrift despite, outward success. From there, we'll dissect the powerful societal constructs that subtly yet profoundly shape our ideas about what work and success should look like. And then, maybe most importantly, we'll transition to exploring practical strategies and actionable insights for redefining our relationship with our careers and lives, moving decisively beyond what many of us have come to accept as the default path.
Okay, let's begin this conversation. The default path. Understanding the unwritten script of life. All right, let's start with Paul Miller's own story. It really sets the stage for the pathless path. He was living what many would consider the dream, right? Based in New York City, pulling in nearly $200,000 a year at a prestigious consulting firm. Surrounded by incredibly driven, ambitious people, the kind of environment that just screams success. Yet despite all these external markers, he describes feeling this profound sense of stuckness, a constant nagging desire to escape work altogether. He even changed jobs multiple times, always convinced the next one would be the final stop, the answer. But the feeling persisted, an unshakable sense that something fundamental was missing.
Yeah, and what's particularly striking about his experience is that this wasn't about a lack of achievement. He had impressive jobs on his resume, big names. I mean, in one instance, he even gave back a substantial $24,000 signing bonus and missed out on a potential $30,000 bonus by leaving early. That's a pretty clear indication that money wasn't the core driver for his discontent. As he notes in the book, when your path is filled with such impressive names and achievements, well, no one asks, why are you doing this?
Right. Silence.
Exactly. This silence from others, combined with his internal struggle, points to a deep internal misalignment, what he calls a blind spot. He hadn't truly asked himself the deeper, maybe more uncomfortable questions about what he actually wanted, independent of, external validation. And this feeling resonates powerfully with so many people who meticulously climb that ladder of traditional success, only to find the view from the top surprisingly hollow.
The good life isn't quite what was promised.
Precisely. It's the feeling that it isn't quite what you thought it would be.
So that internal dissonance finally forced a shift. It was only when he literally ran away from that default path, a rather dramatic but maybe necessary escape, that he stumbled upon a concept that fundamentally shifted his perspective. David Whyte's profound idea of the pathless path. It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it?
It really is.
The idea of finding a path by abandoning the expectation of having one clear path at all. This simple yet powerful notion helped him completely reimagine his relationship with work. He moved from wanting to escape it entirely to cultivating a deep desire to work on things that genuinely mattered to him. And it wasn't like a sudden, bold act of quitting. It was more a gradual, slow awakening over years of feeling lost and disconnected. A subtle but profound internal reorientation.
Okay, so if this pathless path is the antidote, what exactly is this default path that Miller references so often? At its heart, it's basically a culturally shared life script. You can imagine it as an unwritten, yet almost universally accepted series of expected decisions and accomplishments. Together, these define what a successful adult looks like. In many Western societies, particularly the U.S., it's really tied up with the American dream.
Right. Graduate college, get the good job.
Exactly. Get a stable job, preferably in a large corporation, then marry, buy a home, raise a family. You know the drill. Researchers Dorothy Bernson and David Rubin, who study these life scripts, found remarkable consistency across cultures, which is interesting. But they also highlighted a crucial point. Most of these expected moments, these milestones defining societal success, are typically crammed into a relatively short window, usually occurring before age 35.
And the implications of that are huge. If most of life's success benchmarks are compressed into your 20s and early 30s, what happens after? What does that leave for the vast, uncharted territory of the rest of your life? A huge portion remains unscripted.
Yeah, completely unscripted.
This leaves people utterly unprepared for the inevitable setbacks, the unexpected turns, the crises life always throws at us. It fosters this intense, almost crippling belief that everything must be figured out by, say, 25 or 30. And that, in turn, severely limits what we even perceive as possible for our lives.
It boxes you in.
You end up internalizing John Maynard Keynes' worldly wisdom that it's actually better for reputation to fail conventionally than to succeed unconventionally.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is. This profound fear of unconventional failure, even if that unconventional path might lead to far greater personal fulfillment, is a huge force. It explains why so many people cling desperately to paths they secretly dread. They're choosing the path of least social resistance, even if it means personal misery.
And this cultural script brings us to what Millard aptly terms the anomaly of modern work beliefs. For centuries, across most cultures and throughout human history, work was primarily viewed pretty pragmatically, just a means to meet basic needs. Max Weber, in his seminal work on the spirit of capitalism, described this as a traditionalist mindset. You worked as much as was necessary to provide for yourself and your family, and then you stopped. Leisure, contemplation, those were often seen as higher pursuits.
Right, work wasn't the center of life.
Arasso, exactly. But then came the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s. Figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin began to shift this paradigm dramatically. Work transformed from a mere necessity into a moral and spiritual duty, a calling from God, a way to demonstrate devotion and, implicitly, one's salvation. This new theology led to what Erich Fromm observed as an obsessional craving to work by the 16th century. It became not just about doing enough, but about constant industriousness.
And here's where the insight deepens. This obsessional craving for work, once imbued of profound religious meaning, persisted. But as societies became less religious, people looked elsewhere for guidance. That intense work ethic became, well, a watered-down version, stripped of its original spiritual context. And Helen Peterson's fantastic essay, How Millennials Became the Burnout Generation, captures this perfectly. She articulates the widespread confusion and exhaustion that comes with the internalized idea that you should be working all the time, simply because everything and everyone in my life has reinforced it.
And no deeper why anymore.
Exactly. This constant pressure, decoupled from any intrinsic meaning or spiritual purpose, often leads directly to the widespread burnout we see today. It's like we're following a deeply ingrained script, but we've forgotten the original lines.
And compounding this historical shift is a significant economic anomaly that profoundly shaped our expectations. The post-World War II long boom in the U.S. saw unprecedented annual GDP growth rates, like 4 or 5%. This period created an expectation of constant advancement, stable, full-time jobs, generous benefits. It was, frankly, historically unique. Professor Raj Chetty at Harvard, for instance, found that a staggering 9 out of 10 people born right after WWII did better economically than their parents.
Wow, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, this unparalleled period really solidified the idea that life should be built around a steady corporate job, a trajectory of ever-increasing prosperity.
And this is precisely where Jim O'Shaughnessy's perspective offers a powerful counterpoint. He argues that his generation's fundamental mistake was assuming this post-WWII anomaly, the classic gold watch job for an entire career that can support a family of 4, was the norm, not realizing it was a unique historical circumstance. My own father's company, which grew like crazy in his early years, was more like a tech startup of its day, not some boring, stable corporation.
Interesting parallel.
This ingrained expectation of linear growth and unwavering stability, when the underlying economic reality has shifted, creates a massive disconnect for people navigating today's far more volatile job market. The script just doesn't match reality anymore.
Which brings us right into the meaningful work trap. Millennials, perhaps more than any generation before, entered the workforce not just wanting jobs, but deeply meaningful, fulfilling callings. A Yale study by Amy Wierzniewski defined these callings beautifully work inseparable from their life, pursued not for financial gain or career advancement, but instead for the fulfillment they provide.
So companies picked up on this desire.
Oh, absolutely. Eager to attract top talent, they quickly adapted. Google famously led the way with extensive benefits, on-site laundry, massages, language classes, a trend later mimicked by almost every major corporation. Think about McKinsey's slogan, have a career that fits your calling, or Facebook's promise, do the most meaningful work of your life. Powerful lures.
But what's the reality behind those promises of constant joy and fulfillment? This is where it gets really interesting. A study from the University of Sussex by Bailey and Madden found that meaningful experiences at work were often associated with mixed, uncomfortable, or even painful thoughts and feelings, not just a sense of unalloyed joy and happiness.
That's counterintuitive.
Totally. It contrasts sharply with the fun and joy often promised. The surprising takeaway, which Millard experienced and the research confirms, is that if your pursuit of meaning feels hard, frustrating, or even painful sometimes, you might actually be on the right path.
Ah, so the difficulty is part of it.
Exactly. The expectation of constant happiness, of work always feeling good, that becomes the real trap. It makes us abandon genuine depth for something more superficial and easier. True meaning often emerges from struggle, from overcoming obstacles, not just effortless bliss.
And this unrealistic expectation clashes fundamentally with what sociologist Andre Gorz termed a wage-based society. In this framework, formal, paid work becomes the primary, almost the only way to gain membership and validation in society. The ethic shifts to, never mind what work you do, what counts is having a job.
Just having a job.
Right. This perspective leads to significant misperceptions. For instance, many assume full-time work is the norm for adults, even though only about 40% of adult Americans actually work more than 35 hours per week. Governments globally prioritize job creation above almost all else, making it politically risky to question this overwhelming focus on formal employment, regardless of its quality or purpose.
And this brings us neatly to David Graeber's concept of bullshit jobs roles, where the people doing them privately feel their work is of no value, maybe even actively detrimental. Millard experienced this firsthand as an intern, sorting boxes for Amelia Earhart rumors, or having a cubicle mate who spent 5 or 6 hours a day just surfing the web.
Wow.
When he tried to talk about this waste of time, he was met with dismissive remarks like, "You should be grateful for being paid." This deep-seated inefficiency and feeling of pointlessness drove him to search for better options, like strategy consulting, where the work was theoretically more interesting. Yet, even there, endless commitment was expected. Colleagues often worked 50 to 60 hours a week or more, despite maybe a stated 40-50-hour expectation. The underlying pressure to constantly do more, even if unnecessary or unproductive, was relentless. It created a system that prioritized perceived dizziness over actual impact. 2. The traps of achievement and prestige. A personal account. So we've outlined the default path. Now, Millard's personal account vividly shows how subtly, how easily one can fall into these traps of achievement and prestige. He describes developing what writer William Deresiewicz famously termed a hoop jumper mentality at Yale.
Ah, yes, the hoop jumper.
Deresiewicz observed his students were often more concerned with meticulously accumulating A's and impressive resume bullet points than with pursuing genuine curiosity or intellectual challenge. Millard's own college experience mirrors this perfectly, optimizing his schedule using ratemyprofessor.com for guaranteed A's, petitioning for extra easy classes, relentlessly chasing honors, all while conveniently sidestepping anything that might have offered a genuine challenge.
It's a strategy for outward success, not necessarily inner growth.
Exactly.
And the drive behind this hoop jumper mentality isn't just about grades. It's this deep internalization that education, maybe life itself, is about getting the answers, acing the test, rather than truly engaging your mind. It's often fueled by powerful parental expectations and this intense, almost unconscious desire to keep up with high-achieving friends. Millard, acknowledging himself as a late arrival to this relentless game, quickly learned to hack the system, always finding loopholes and strategies to boost his grades and collect accolades. He admits that with every scholarship or internship, he felt an intoxicating feeling of success, genuinely believing he had it all figured out.
But it never connected him to anything deeper.
Right. It was always about checking the next box, impressing the next person, rather than finding true meaning or purpose.
And this well-honed hoop jumper mentality naturally propelled him towards chasing what C.S. Lewis brilliantly called the inner ring.
That desire to be inside.
Yes. This powerful, almost primal desire to be inside the local ring and the terror of being left outside. Before his senior year, Millard literally created a spreadsheet of the most prestigious consulting firms and investment banks. This wasn't just a career search. It was a profound quest for belonging, for entry into that coveted inner ring of perceived elite success. He wasn't just looking for a job. He was looking for an identity.
And we see clear examples of this obsession throughout his early career. He vividly describes a super day for Wachovia's investment bank. He felt acutely like a non-target applicant watching confident students from elite schools who oozed confidence precisely because they were already part of the inner ring. It was clear they had an unspoken
They
advantage.
were already in.
Exactly. Even his later move to GE's financial management program, seen as a fast track within GE, was chosen despite having zero finance background. He applied simply because it represented the inner ring within GE, the exclusive path to perceived advancement and prestige. The actual work was secondary to the status it conferred.
So the motivation then wasn't solely money, though that was part of it. It was an intoxicating feeling of being perceived as smart and impressive that the magnet of prestige offered so powerfully. It didn't truly matter that he'd never worked in finance or that he'd be moving to Ohio far from his friends and family.
No, the prestige overruled that.
The underlying unease he felt on the long drive to Ohio and the profound boredom he experienced at GE, where colleagues seemed more interested in retirement portfolios than the actual work, quickly served as catalysts. He immediately began seeking out what he considered the real inner ring in Boston, a clear sign the chase for status was still the dominant driver.
But this pursuit of the inner ring, well, it came with its own illusions and subtle traps. His experience at McKinsey, a globally renowned firm, was initially thrilling. He was surrounded by enthusiastic and curious people, openly sharing ambitious exit options. Top grad schools, CEO spots, roles at other prestigious institutions. The author quickly accepted this first-person work-centric story of progress, where any deviation felt like personal failure. The constant talk of exit options served a dual purpose.
How so?
Well, it made the relentless work seem temporary, but it also subtly reinforced the idea that McKinsey itself was merely a stepping stone, a means to an even more prestigious end. It was always about the next achievement, never truly arriving.
And this environment, despite the initial thrill of being inside, led to a subtle but incredibly powerful trap, defaulting to options admired by peers, like top business schools, Harvard or Stanford, rather than genuinely asking himself what he truly desired, independent of that external validation.
Exactly. As C.S. Lewis warned, this desire to be in the inner ring is going to be one of the chief motives of your life, unless you take measures to prevent it. Millard saw this firsthand. Even if he intellectually loved the demanding work at McKinsey, the natural thing in that world was to leave for the next big thing, like his acceptance into a prestigious dual-degree program at MIT.
Right, he was on a path too good to be true, happy to be on it, but completely blind to any other kind of life, beyond the default script he was following. This relentless chase left no room for introspection or considering alternatives. 3. Crisis as catalyst, the emergence of deeper questions.
This relentless pursuit, this constant hoop jumping, can only go so far before something inevitably shifts. Philosopher Andrew Taggart offers a profound insight here. He believes that crisis moments often create existential openings. These are pivotal junctures that force us, often against our will, to grapple with life's deepest questions.
The ones we usually ignore.
Exactly. The fundamental inquiries about purpose and meaning that we've long ignored or successfully pushed aside. Moments of profound vulnerability, but also immense potential for redirection.
For Paul Millard, that intensely personal trigger was the profound loss of his grandfather. Witnessing his grandfather's life work, not defined by corporate titles or money, but by creating this magical world of love and possibility for his family, despite a tough childhood, made it crystal clear to Millard that family, love, and relationships were the most important.
A real moment of clarity.
Huge. The stark, gut-wrenching realization that he nearly missed his grandfather's final breaths because of silly emails from work sent him down what he calls the way of loss. This tragedy forced a flood of ignored questions to the surface. What was I living for? What did I really want? How did I want to look back on my life when it's my time to go? Difficult, terrifying questions. But for the first time, he was truly ready to contemplate them without distraction.
And that profound emotional openness, that perspective shift, completely reoriented his priorities as he started business school. Everything suddenly felt more meaningful, seen through this new lens. Instead of meticulously chasing grades or external career benchmarks, he consciously prioritized friendships, relationships, genuine learning. He deliberately chose classes that genuinely interested him, even earning his first C+, which is remarkably low, almost failing in the high-stakes world of business school, in a class he deemed pointless busy work.
Wow, that's a statement.
It was a conscious, deliberate decision to put life first after 3 intense years of relentlessly putting career first. His memories of business school shifted dramatically, no longer about achievements, but about rich experiences with friends, affirmed by a friend's simple comment that he lived life to its fullest during that time.
This new life-first focus, though, had immediate and humbling consequences. He was rejected by McKinsey and other big-name firms, a direct result of his shifted priorities. He recalls walking down Charles Street in Boston when he got the call, feeling like a loser, his carefully constructed career identity starting to crumble. He
Ouch.
realized he simply wasn't as committed to that specific path as his classmates. Clear cracks in his career identity were appearing, yet despite this dawning awareness, he admits he still had no conception of any other kind of life beyond the default path. A small consulting firm eventually offered him a position, providing a temporary lifeline that let him ignore those emerging cracks for a bit longer.
But a more prolonged and profoundly transformative struggle was just beginning. A severe health crisis. For 18 agonizing months, he battled a persistent cold, crushing fatigue, debilitating brain fog, widespread physical pain, eventually diagnosed as complex Lyme disease. He describes enduring a Herx reaction during treatment, a painful intensification of symptoms, while building an impressive spreadsheet drenched in sweat in a corporate hotel room feeling helpless and afraid. His life became a blur of doctors, treatments, and just trying to show up for work.
And here's where the turning point truly lay. A powerful example of exceptional leadership and kindness. His boss, Peter, witnessing Millard's profound struggle, made an extraordinary suggestion: a paid month off for recovery.
That's remarkable.
Absolutely. Peter risked his own job, potentially his career, telling Millard the client and firm's struggles were trivial compared to his health. This inspiring moment of genuine human kindness transformed Millard's perspective, a stark contrast to the relentless work-first culture he'd known.
That health crisis became an immense internal transformation. To process his questions and maintain hope, he started writing a blog called Lyme Sucks. By forcing himself to type sentences filled with optimism, even when his body screamed otherwise, he kept that vital part of him alive. A deeply compassionate reply from his friend Jordan, "Paul, that's crazy, I've only known you since you've been sick and you're still pretty great," gave him the courage to finally abandon his self-identity as a broken, sick person.
Letting go of that label.
Yes. Realizing something new, something more resilient was emerging. This resonates strongly with Professors Tedeschi and Calhoun's research on post-traumatic growth, profound positive psychological changes after struggling with highly challenging life circumstances. This growth often manifests as an appreciation for life, more meaningful relationships, increased personal strength, changed priorities, a richer existential life. Through his illness, Millard realized he would be okay, even if he couldn't work again, understanding he'd trade all his credentials for a single day of feeling well.
Even after gradually returning to work part-time, he entered this new phase of profound restlessness,
Yeah.
a feeling his friend Kihai vividly describes as having a pebble in your shoe.
Ah, the pebble.
Yeah. It's a subtle, low-grade discomfort, a nagging sense that something is off, that slowly becomes intolerable enough to demand urgent attention. His slow recovery from Lyme forced him to pay attention to life differently, to recognize the invisible constraints he'd been living under. He realized he'd been operating within an invisible bubble, unaware until he began to heal.
This growing awareness led him to adopt a surprisingly simple yet profoundly effective practical tool for reorientation. Inspired by an MIT alumnus named Earl Jones, Millard created a daily calendar entry listing his life priorities: health, relationships, fun and creativity, and finally, career in that specific non-negotiable order.
The order matters.
Absolutely. This simple decision was my first conscious commitment to exploring the possibility of a life not centered around work. This reminder popped up at 8:30 a.m. every morning, forcing him to confront how he was truly designing his life, creating a daily moment of intentionality.
And the immediate, almost rebellious consequence of this prioritization was what he playfully calls underachieving at work. He started canceling morning meetings that felt unnecessary, working remotely without asking permission, even taking naps at the office when needed.
That must have felt strange.
Totally. It felt rebellious, even wrong at times, deviating from the norms. But crucially, it was about taking ownership of his life, his health, his creative energy. A conscious, deliberate shift from being consumed by work to actively making space for what genuinely mattered. It wasn't laziness, it was self-preservation and a profound redefinition of success. 4. Breaking free and redefining work, an unscripted journey. So after years of this subtle internal shift, the actual act of quitting his job wasn't some sudden, bold, dramatic event. It was more the inevitable culmination of years of feeling lost, wandering without a clear picture of the next step.
Right, it wasn't an overnight decision.
Not at all. The moment of his actual quit was almost anticlimactic. 10 seconds at the bottom of an email after an argument with his manager about unnecessarily aggressive emails. He simply typed, "I think I should move on." He confesses he couldn't muster up a single ounce of energy to tell him otherwise. It was an inevitable direction that, looking back, had been building for a very long time.
This next 3 months, staying on to train his replacement, felt like an eternity. 3 months too long. He describes this period as a liminal space between two worlds, a transitional zone where he was operating entirely without a script. He vividly recalls the soul-crushing commute, becoming part of the blob of workers at Grand Central, entering the mediocre MetLife building, observing others' expressionless faces. Yeah. This amplified the feeling that he was in this profound state of transition, caught between a life he was actively leaving and a future he couldn't yet define. Disorienting, but also a time of quiet observation.
And here's the surprising, almost counterintuitive realization that flooded over him after he finally quit. Despite always telling himself he was too smart for burnout, always taking vacation, not working crazy hours, changing jobs frequently, the overwhelming emotional flood after quitting revealed the undeniable truth. He was burned out, deeply and profoundly.
Even though he thought he was managing it.
Exactly. His later writing connected powerfully with Freudenberger's research, linking burnout not just to exhaustion, but to a profound sense of mourning and a grieving process to let go of ideals. He had been expertly managing this deep disconnect between who he was and who he thought he should be. And now, finally, all that suppressed emotional weight came surfacing, demanding to be processed.
Reality hit hard after quitting, especially in expensive New York City. With absolutely no work lined up, the intense financial pressure ignited a period of frenzied activity, which is pretty common, understandable really, for people leaving stable jobs without immediate income. He proactively pursued freelance projects, saying yes to virtually everything, driven by that primal need for security.
This urgent need led to a truly fantastic anecdote, his fool with a sign moment. His very first freelance gig paid a modest $1,000 for him to find people wearing Allbirds shoes around NYC.
Okay.
On day 2, facing limited success, he resorted to buying a cardboard sign that boldly read, "Do you own Allbirds?" and held it up at a bustling farmer's market.
I love that.
Despite the initial embarrassment, feeling foolish, he discovered a profound liberation. He was able to laugh at himself and have fun with it, transforming the mundane task into something playful. This quirky experience became a ritualistic shift from a formal, buttoned-up corporate life to one that was a little more free, helping him embrace uncertainty and start shedding that rigid identity. It was an act of humble self-acceptance.
And this unscripted journey led him to a truly profound question posed by philosopher Andrew Taggart that jolted his entire reality. If work dominated your every moment, would life be worth living? The author realized with a jolt that his entire life was oriented around work. His apartment, social life, money, even his sense of self-worth were inextricably linked to his work identity.
Wow, everything.
He'd internalized it so deeply that even when self-employed, he felt deep guilt if he wasn't working during typical work hours, instinctively defaulting to going to a co-working office 5 days a week. It became crystal clear he still had an internal manager in his head, constantly pushing him.
This internal struggle ties directly into Joseph Piper's concept of total work. Piper argued that ancient Greek society, where work was just not at leisure, a means to an end, and true leisure, defined as contemplative, beholding, deep engagement with reality, was central. Well, that's been completely flipped.
Flipped how?
Now, in modern society, we work primarily to earn time off, constantly mistaking leisure for idleness and work for creativity. Millard was beginning to open up to this deeper leisure, but was still battling the internalized value system where his worth came from productivity. This is precisely why Taggart's follow-up questions were so crucial, terrifying, yet transformative. Are you a worker? If you are not a worker, then who are you? Given who you are, what life is sufficient? These inquiries began to unlock unimaginable possibilities.
With these deeply unsettling yet liberating questions echoing, after 6 months of intense freelancing, Millard consciously designed his own non-work sabbatical. He made a deliberate choice to abandon the pervasive responsibility of being a worker. During this time, he woke without an alarm, worked out only when he felt like it, wandered the city on normal weekdays, observing life around him. He experienced Piper's concept of leisure deeply, finding a lighthearted playfulness dormant for years, suffocated by anxiety. Yet, he admits when asked about work, he still felt a tinge of guilt, offering a vague, hand-wavy response. The old conditioning wasn't entirely gone.
This profound experience of non-doing resonated strongly with the ancient Chinese philosophy of Wu Wei. Wu Wei isn't about doing nothing. It describes a deep level of connectedness with the world, allowing things to unfold naturally, defining mastery through non-action.
It's counterintuitive to our hustle culture.
Totally. Imagine pushing a river uphill that's resisting. Wu Wei is learning to navigate the current, exert effort effectively when it matters, and step back when forcing isn't productive. For Millard, it was letting go of anxiety and tension, being open to what emerged when he stopped trying to control everything.
Yeah.
And it was in this state of non-doing that the unexpected happened.
Like what?
He met Angie, who was also on her own pathless path, embracing uncertainty. Their relationship flourished, demonstrating the life-changing magic of non-doing. Profound shifts happen when you least expect them. He even landed a freelance project for double his previous rate, working just 10-15 hours a week from Asia, a life completely unimaginable months before.
As Millard continued his journey, he studied others who'd taken similar breaks or sabbaticals, and he observed 4 consistent, almost predictable shifts. First was a heightened awareness of suffering. People often only truly notice their low-grade anxiety, fatigue, or discontent once they step away from the constant noise causing it.
Like Kevin Jerzik realizing, this job isn't so bad. Then you get a breath of freedom and realize, no, it may have been worth it at one point, but not anymore.
Exactly. Or Jacqueline Jensen finding her structured sabbatical helped her untangle her identity from work, feeling lighter after just a month.
The second consistent shift was a powerful reemergence of curiosity. When individuals get time and space, they naturally begin trying new things, revisiting old hobbies, connecting with community. Dr. Edward, a friend and physician, observed that during his sabbatical, new ideas often pop up. Old topics of interest float back, create a process, liberated. The mind starts to play again.
Third, a desire to continue the non-work journey or integrate its principles often solidifies. Lenny Rachitsky, after a sabbatical, put it perfectly. My heart was no longer in the work. I knew it was time to shake things up. The taste of freedom sparks a longing for more. And the fourth, deeply significant shift was that people often write. Alex Pang, for example, after his sabbatical, questioned traditional productivity, leading him to write influential books about rest and shorter work weeks. These intentional breaks consistently enabled people to recapture energy and take bold steps towards vastly different, more fulfilling lives. They weren't just resting, they were transforming.
This leads directly to Tim Ferriss's compelling concept of mini-retirements, the revolutionary idea of strategically redistributing 20-30 years of traditional retirement throughout your life.
Not just one big retirement at the end.
Exactly. These are intentionally designed as anti-vacations, not just escaping. They're deep periods of re-examination, creating a blank slate. Ferriss masterfully prompts profound questions. How do your decisions change if retirement isn't an option? What if you could use a mini-retirement to sample your future plans now? Is it really necessary to commit fully to work to live like a millionaire?
Powerful questions.
This approach explicitly promotes creativity, experimentation, proactive life design, suggesting you can test different ways of structuring your existence in blocks of 1 to 3 months, gaining invaluable insights.
Now, dramatic stories of quitting are often oversimplified into captivating narratives of pure courage. Millard challenges this romanticized view. He explains his own path wasn't a sudden leap, but one of pragmatic and safe experiments over several years. He calls this prototyping your leap. For instance, John Zeratsky's seemingly dramatic story of quitting to sail around Central America, it actually involved years of careful small sailing trips as prototypes, one night, a long weekend, a week, 2 months. Each small experiment built confidence and knowledge, reducing the perceived risk.
Exactly. We see this powerful prototyping approach everywhere. Consider Diane Merriam's journey, from $30 in debt to financial independence. Her path wasn't sudden. She systematically prototyped, negotiated remote work, took an unpaid sabbatical to walk the Camino de Santiago, gaining clarity, eventually transitioned into podcasting, earning a third of her old salary but gaining immense autonomy and purpose. She meticulously prototyped her way out.
This incremental approach eliminates unnecessary risk, dramatically expands your perception of what's genuinely possible, and helps embrace the spirit of the fool on an uncertain path, understanding that small, deliberate changes unfurl unexpected opportunities, possibilities, and connections you could never have planned for.
Many people dislike parts of their jobs or lives, but they remain stuck because the suffering is familiar. predictable. They tolerate it through coping mechanisms.
Like constantly changing jobs within the same field, frequent but unfulfilling vacations, staying busy to avoid reflection, maybe drinking on weekends to escape.
This dynamic can be summed up. Uncertain discomfort, certain discomfort plus coping mechanism. The unknown feels more terrifying than the known misery.
But there's a powerful disruptor to this equation: wonder. Wonder, as Millard describes it, is an innate openness to the world's beauty, mystery, infinite possibilities. When wonder enters, the need to cope diminishes. The discomfort on the current path becomes glaringly obvious. The equation fundamentally shifts. Uncertain discomfort plus wonder, certain discomfort.
Worry becomes excitement.
Exactly. People genuinely imagine the benefits of an uncertain path. Michael Ashcroft, a burned-out consultant, found wonder prototyping teaching coaching, suddenly feeling a whole bunch of energy will get unlocked when he left his corporate role. Rolf Potts, after an 8-month U.S. trip, went from uncertain to confident in terms of what the potential for life was. Miller's own travels in Asia cemented this wonder as a powerful guiding force.
This profound shift, embracing the unknown, ties into Agnes Callard's brilliant concept of an aspirational journey.
Okay, but
Unlike an ambitious journey, where your values are known and you're just executing a plan towards a defined goal, like a promotion, an aspirational journey is a slow, ambiguous process of trying on the values that we hope one day to possess. It's inherently vague, often incredibly hard to explain, even to yourself, sometimes for years. Millard reflects his love for basketball in youth was aspirational, driven purely by curiosity and mastery, unlike his college ambition for grades, which was transactional.
So the core benefit of this aspirational journey is about learning to see the world in a new way, a transformation of perception itself. Callard notes the aspirant's understanding is characterized by a distinctive kind of vagueness, but this vagueness is part of its power. It requires embracing the discomfort of not knowing, not having all the answers. It's about profound personal transformation, a slow, messy process of becoming rather than simply achieving a known goal.
This is where real growth happens.
And Callard also keenly stresses the needy nature of aspirational people. Because their worldviews are incomplete and evolving, they depend heavily on external support and inspiration. Initially, Millard found invaluable inspiration online from figures like Seth Godin, Derek Sivers, Tim Ferriss, whose unconventional paths challenged his ingrained assumptions.
This highlights Seth Godin's powerful advice to find the others. Actively seek out and surround yourself with people who inspire you, who are on similar quests, who push you. This is precisely why online micro-communities and the vibrant creator economy are so vital. People like Nat Eliason and Peter Levels earn a new kind of prestige by generously sharing their knowledge and experiences.
Sharing becomes valuable.
Meeting these path experts, individuals a few steps ahead on a similar unconventional path, can plant powerful seeds. It did for Lydia Lee, meeting a digital nomad in Malaysia, sparking the realization that a different life was possible.
There's an instant bond when you meet others on a similar, less conventional path. A deep sense of knowing about the unique challenges, uncertainties, subtle triumphs. These relationships offer a profoundly safe space where you don't need good answers, don't need to justify your choices or explain your nonlinear journey. This communal support contrasts sharply with the often hidden cost of traditional success, where self-reliance is celebrated, sometimes leading to isolation.
Despite all the insights and support, navigating fear is an inevitable, continuous part of the pathless path. Millard transparently lists common fears. What if I'm not good enough? Fear of success. What happens if I go broke? Fear of money. What if I get sick? Fear of health. Will I still be loved? Fear of belonging, rejection. And what if I am not happy? Fear of not finding fulfillment. These fears feel overwhelming, paralyzing.
This is precisely where Tim Ferriss's ingenious fear-setting exercise proves incredibly powerful, transforming abstract worries into concrete, manageable issues. It has 6 practical steps. 1, write down the specific change you're considering. 2, meticulously list all the worst possible outcomes. 3, identify actions to mitigate each worst outcome. 4, list steps to get back to the status quo if things go wrong. These first 4 alone are incredibly grounding.
Transforms anxiety into a solvable problem.
Exactly.
But the final 2 questions are arguably the most powerful. 5th, what could be some benefits of an attempt or even partial success? This brings wonder back in, envisioning positive possibilities. And 6th, what is the cost of inaction in 3 months, 12 months, and in a few years? This forces you to confront the profound regret of not staying true to themselves, which Bronnie Ware found was the most common regret of the dying.
That cost of inaction, it's huge. Millard himself admits to preemptive defensiveness initially hiding his move to Taiwan from his parents, fearing questions about healthcare or a real job, desperately not wanting to disappoint them, more afraid of their questions than the uncertainty itself.
What's crucial here is that parental concerns often come from love, a desire for security, not disapproval. However, the pathless path is aspirational, a journey of becoming, and as such, it can never be fully explained to those prioritizing comfort. Learning to open one's heart, share fear and uncertainty, rather than desperately trying to convince others, is key. As Amy McMillan reflected, grappling with, will my parents think I'm a failure, is unavoidable. The deepest fear is often losing love, and the wiser response is vulnerability, not justification. V. Redefine Success, Chapter 8 excerpts. Let's transition now to a truly profound concept: redefining success. A Gallup survey in 2019 revealed a remarkable paradox. A staggering 97% of Americans personally define success as following their interests and talents to be their best. Yet only 8% believed others define success this way. They thought society sees success as being rich, having a high-profile career, being well-known.
Wow, that's a huge disconnect.
Massive. This disconnect between our internal understanding and our perception of society's definition leads to widespread disguising intentions. We only tell the stories we believe are acceptable or impressive.
And this pervasive disconnect often feeds what Dr. Ben Shahar calls the arrival fallacy, the deeply ingrained yet flawed belief that reaching a specific external milestone will bring lasting happiness. We see countless examples: Kevin Durant winning an NBA championship but feeling unfulfilled, Ryan Holiday hitting #1 as an author, becoming a millionaire only to feel nothing.
So what do people do?
The easiest, most common way to deal with this emptiness is to simply ratchet up the goal. Chase more money, bigger house, higher position, perpetuating an endless, unsatisfying chase that never brings sustainable fulfillment. The arrival fallacy guarantees constant pursuit without true arrival.
The book, then, powerfully encourages us to embrace what Millard terms a second chapter of success. This requires a deliberate, often courageous rejection of accepted paths, promising easy money and external admiration. The pathless path is, by nature, a define-your-own-success adventure, where you are emphatically not competing with anyone else's definition or trajectory.
Which means
the odds of your success, as uniquely defined by you, are actually incredibly high. And the personal benefits only compound over time. As Thoreau said, the life which men praise is but one kind. The pathless path invites you to explore all the other kinds.
this pursuit of self-defined success is deeply intertwined with prestige and bad tests. Sarah Kendzior describes our society as a prestige economy, prioritizing money over merit, brand over skill. Millard's McKinsey experience felt like gaining access to an exclusive club, where the real reward wasn't for deep intellectual work, but for hacking the system, passing bad tests.
What kind of bad tests?
Things like getting senior partners to like you, mastering specific ways of dressing and speaking, showing relentless availability skills of social navigation and conformity, not genuine prowess.
Paul Graham, the startup mentor, offers a powerful critique here. He argues many founders mistakenly believe in big launches and exposure, prioritizing external validation over intrinsic quality. Graham insists the way you get lots of users is to make the product really great. These bad tests were prevalent in consulting, where work quality often mattered less than impressing hundreds of people to get promoted, rewarding visibility over substance.
In stark contrast, when Millard ventured into freelancing, he competed primarily on the quality of ideas and his ability to do good work. This shift was remarkably less time-consuming precisely because it didn't involve that draining political effort. This is the essence of the indie economy or creator economy. Success built on genuine learning, tangible skills, cultivating an authentic reputation through valuable output. It's harder in some ways, forging your own path, but often far more rewarding.
And he observes a crucial, liberating shift. It's no longer true that you need to hack these bad tests to find meaningful work and build a successful life.
Indeed. This liberation of energy, as Graham insightfully puts it, will be amazing for society. As more people consciously opt out of these silly tests and choose to create new, better games, we free up immense creative, intellectual energy previously funneled into meaningless conformity, unleashing human potential.
This liberation brings us to a fascinating, often disorienting idea. You are a bad egg, rooted in James Scott's work on legibility. How modernity, especially state functions like taxation, needs to standardize populations, often at a cost to individual nuance. Scott uses the example of scientific forestry, optimizing diverse forests for uniform timber production. Makes it legible for logging, but tragically loses ecological diversity and value.
Ah, I see. Standardization.
This drive for standardization transferred subtly to work, making the standardized job the fundamental organizing unit.
Ben Hunt uses the metaphor of the industrially necessary egg to illustrate this. Good eggs meet market specs, clean, uniform, perfect for mass production. On the default path, you strive to be a good egg, fitting neatly into predefined molds. But on the pathless path, you consciously choose to become a bad egg. Seen as a rebel, someone who doesn't fit deviates from the norm. When Millard initially left, he deeply felt like a rebel needing to defend his recklessness.
But here's the profound counterpoint. Reality is, only about 26% of the global population works full-time, suggesting the good egg job isn't the universal reality, despite its perceived dominance. Embracing the initial disorienting feeling of being a bad egg is crucial. It eventually leads to the liberating realization that there are no good eggs or bad eggs at all.
But the pressure to fit in, the internal feeling of being lost when you step away, can be incredibly disorienting.
Rebecca Solnit describes this feeling of being lost as the familiar falling away and the unfamiliar appearing. She highlights how even hugely successful athletes like Noah Lowry or Chauncey Billups felt disorienting and chaotic when their highly structured careers ended.
Money doesn't solve that.
Exactly. Proves money alone can't solve the fundamental human skill of dealing with uncertainty. Wisdom, Millard argues, comes precisely from being lost, from losing the world to ultimately find ourselves. It's in the liminal spaces that true self-discovery occurs.
This journey also fundamentally involves learning to find your enough. Paul Jarvis, in Company of One, consciously kept his business intentionally small, despite pressures to grow exponentially. He realized a large part of choosing your path is figuring out which values will determine your worth. For Jarvis, it was ownership of time and creative control, enabling him to say no to opportunities that didn't align with deeper values.
It's incredibly hard to define enough when constantly bombarded by the default path's push for more money, status, possessions. But finding your enough isn't passive. It's a conscious, active choice of values, defining what truly brings meaning. For Millard, it was ownership of time and creative freedom. His decision to launch a podcast as an experiment, operating from a feeling of enough rather than chasing money or fame, allowed him to create it rapidly. Jarvis's famous automated email, this email address is no longer active or monitored, perfectly illustrates knowing when enough is enough.
Finally, to truly embark on this path, we must move beyond scarcity mindset. Millard's own mother credited his health crisis for fundamentally changing him, making him far more comfortable leaving his job without a plan, even as savings dwindled. Despite being a financial analyst, he admits he'd never actually modeled his own spending or truly understood his relationship with money. This raw experience of financial vulnerability made him less fearful.
He candidly describes experiencing a classic scarcity mindset. The lack of a paycheck made him obsess over money, like participants in a 1944 study obsessed over food when deprived. This obsession drove him to cut costs aggressively, saving significantly by moving to Boston. However, he quickly realized minimizing spending is a crucial step towards freedom, but not a sustainable lifestyle in itself.
It shifts you from defense to offense.
Exactly, from playing to not lose to playing to win by embracing possibility. While financial worries can be infinite, the pathless path is about learning to coexist with them, letting them fade as you focus energy on deeper meaning and purpose. 6. The real work of your life. Chapter 9 excerpts.
So if we're genuinely redefining success, what then constitutes the real work of your life? Poet David Whyte offers a beautiful concept: the conversational nature of reality. He suggests reality isn't static, but an ongoing dialogue with the world. We uncover truths about ourselves, our purpose, simply by opening up to this conversation, being present and curious about what the world reveals. It's an active engagement.
This resonates deeply with Millard's favorite questions, which guide his conversation. What truly matters? Why do we work? What defines the good life? What holds people back? How do we find work that brings us alive? Not simple questions with immediate answers, but when guided by curiosity, he found spontaneous answers slowly emerging, not from frantic searching, but as a natural byproduct of living with these inquiries. That's how you know you found a real conversation that emerges from within.
Stepping off the default path thrusts you onto this frontier of self-discovery, where subtle clues about your unique conversation emerge. It's profoundly disorienting. Millard cautions strongly against sharing these nascent insights too soon. Why? Because doubt, skepticism, even well-meaning criticism can easily derail the fragile process before it takes root. This period needs quiet incubation.
This is precisely why real conversations with a small circle of close, trusted friends are so incredibly important, as William Deresiewicz highlights. These friends serve as crucial anchors, helping you stay aware of your emerging conversation, providing unwavering support without judgment. These intimate exchanges are crucial for comfort, courage, clarity in the face of the unknown, a vital sounding board.
The book also offers powerful guidance on how to design for liking work. John O'Nolan, founder of the Ghost blogging platform, made a deliberate decision early on. He decided to build a business he genuinely wanted to be stuck with indefinitely, rather than one solely optimized for a quick exit or massive scale. He famously turned down high-maintenance clients, realizing no money is worth it if it undermines your desire to stay on the journey. Focus on sustainable joy, not just profit.
And this leads to a truly counterintuitive yet liberating truth Miller discovered. As soon as I let go of this notion of huge success, that's when success started coming to me.
A powerful paradox.
This approach is about experimenting, finding what activities are genuinely worth doing indefinitely, what truly brings you alive, and then meticulously building a life around that core purpose rather than chasing external metrics. A profound shift from optimizing for escape to designing for deep satisfaction.
This pursuit aligns beautifully with Stephen Cope's concept of the great work of your life, a deep search for what truly ignites your spirit, then fighting for the opportunity to dedicate yourself to that work. The ancient Gospel of Thomas articulates this starkly. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. A call to profound authenticity.
Miller highlights his own mother as a powerful role model. She embodies finding work you genuinely want to keep doing, regardless of formal definitions. She had an innate ability to find a place and meaningful role in many environments. Not about titles, but finding that core engagement, that inner spark. Her life demonstrated the real work is about connection to purpose.
This deep dive into the real work is rooted in a fundamental human desire. We want to be useful. Robert Keegan's self-authoring describes the crucial shift from relying on external cues to developing an internal narrative for how to live. A significant barrier is the pervasive voice of shame. Brené Brown defines shame as the debilitating belief that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love. Shame traps us in following paths not truly ours. Driving conformity out of fear will be cast out.
Brown contrasts this with guilt, which she identifies as actionable. Guilt points out the disconnect between values and actions, a healthy guide. Shame paralyzes. Millard observes a universal truth. Most people deeply want to engage with the world and to be useful, not just live passively. Sebastian Junger's research on soldiers found they often thrived on hardship because they felt necessary. Their contributions were vital. This innate desire to contribute is powerful, but too often hijacked by shame.
This process is often about remembering what you forgot. George Leonard describes it as a beautiful process of remembering, forgetting, and remembering again, tapping into childhood curiosities, past passions long suppressed. Millard revisited his early love for computers, DOS for dummies. These forgotten interests can lead down a far more interesting path than conventional success. Clues from your authentic self.
And it's absolutely crucial to realize you are creative, not just for artists. It's a fundamental human capacity manifesting in countless ways. Navigating bureaucracy, designing emojis, parenting, hosting dinners, planning weddings. We are all creative.
The internet has profoundly lowered the marginal cost of generosity and removed traditional gatekeepers. As Seth Godin asserts, not to master them is a sin. The means of production are now in your hands. Millard self-published his book, An Act Requiring Permission, just a generation ago.
He shares his experience writing openly on Quora about health challenges. Feared it was too vulnerable. But that honest sharing reached 500,000 people, proving many are waiting for what you have to share, your authentic voice. Creativity isn't predetermined, it's an active choice.
So once creating and sharing, the pivotal question becomes, who do you serve? Millard learned this powerfully from critical online comments. He had a moment of clarity. He wasn't writing for critics, but for people like me, those struggling on the default path who want to dream bigger. Liberating.
Seth Godin tells a similar story about Chef David Chang. Once Chang figured out who you intend to serve, he could go all in and focus on what it takes to become great, ignoring distractions. Laser focus versus mass market thinking. For Millard, success isn't external markers, but internal validation, heartfelt messages, meaningful conversations. This hidden motivation becomes a far greater reward.
And what he calls virtuous meaning cycles illustrate how the world is waiting. The internet offers unparalleled connection with curious humans from around the world. The positive side of earning a living by creating and sharing online is often obscured by default path logic. Millard found wisdom in Maria Popova's insight. Critical thinking without hope is cynicism, but hope without critical thinking is naivete. This helped him stop hedging bets, put my heart into my writing, attracting people sharing his curiosity. A reminder that hope emerges from action and honesty. Seventh, playing the long game, Chapter 10 excerpts.
The pathless path opens up a vast, almost overwhelming landscape of possibilities. So how do you navigate this freedom, commit without feeling lost? This is where working backward, the power of inversion comes in.
Carl Jacobi's principle of inversion is counterintuitive yet effective. Instead of asking what makes an amazing life, first define the worst-case scenario, the life you absolutely don't want, and work backward. Millard vividly imagined his negative me, cynical, financially insecure, unhealthy, trapped in a cubicle, filled with regret. He challenges you, the listener, to write down the person you don't want to be, then list actions leading there. These traces in your present life become clues for immediate change. Understanding what to avoid clarifies the right path.
And this strategic thinking leads to Nassim Taleb's concept of anti-fragility. Some things don't just withstand disorder, they gain strength from it. Millard applies this brilliantly by diversifying income, 8-10 different ways, each $200 plus month. This makes him resilient to changes, allowing him to play an infinite game where the goal isn't to win, but to continue the play indefinitely. Objective isn't a fixed destination, but creating enduring conditions for flourishing, focusing on resilience, sustainability.
A common fear is, what do you do with all that time if not constantly working? Eric Fromm, in Escape from Freedom, observed how people struggled with newfound freedom in the 1930s. Liberated economically, many felt isolated, powerless, disoriented, freed from something but not yet freed for something.
But true freedom, Fromm argues, isn't just liberation from oppression. It's the full realization of the individual's potential, together with his ability to live actively and spontaneously. The solution: creative activity, engaging with the world, finding intrinsic value in the act itself, beyond money or prestige. As Dolly Parton advises, find out who you are and do it on purpose. Conscious direction provides the framework for embracing radical freedom.
This journey inevitably involves consistently reinventing who you are. There's the end of history illusion, underestimating how much will change, believing we're fixed. Millard's experience moving abroad, running his business, made him more adaptable. Each challenge became growth.
He emphasizes, reinvention is one of the most valuable meta skills today. The era of a single linear life is over. We will be forced out of comfort zones. Embracing this, cultivating reinvention, equips us for modern life's demands, a necessity, not an option.
A critical, often overlooked aspect is embracing abundance, the gift economy. Our culture equates time with money. Time is now currency. It is not passed but spent, leading to a scarcity mindset.
But Charles Eisenstein introduces the gift economy, encouraging generosity not as a transaction, but a skill to cultivate, fostering deeper relationships. If I buy something, no more relationship. If you give me something, now I feel I owe you one, creating reciprocity. Millard experimented, giving $100 cash to a stranger, offering a course on a pay-what-feels-right model. He continually found the amount of generosity always blows me away, fundamentally shifted his perception of wealth.
This practice yields compounding benefits transcending modern assumptions about value. Proves the generous person is the wealthiest, not necessarily monetarily, but in relationships, capital, abundant mindset, a powerful antidote to scarcity.
Millard's core mantra, coming alive over getting ahead, reminds him not to recreate another job. He faced a choice when his consulting course gained traction, a clear opportunity to scale for profit.
Instead, he paused, reflected. What would make him feel alive? The unequivocal answer. Writing the pathless path. He consciously chose writing over scaling because writing ignited his spirit, demonstrates the long-term payoff of saying no to immediate gain, creating space for creativity, resilience, positive engagement. Optionality isn't waiting for the perfect job. It's diligently leaving space for a little more life, the unexpected, what makes your soul sing.
Finally, to sustain this journey, you must actively create your own culture. Maury Schwartz from Tuesdays with Maury provides a powerful example. Despite ALS, he remained energetic and excited, surrounded by love because he consciously defined his own success and values.
Organizational culture is an evolving set of assumptions. To create your personal culture, identify your assumptions. Maybe. People are capable of more, creativity leads to optimism, leisure is important, many ways to make money. Finding work that matters is the real work. The pathless path is an invitation, opening yourself up to this emergence, the messy beauty of growing up and letting go of old scripts. Accepting the vagueness of not knowing the future but bravely choosing it, step by unpredictable step, every day. 8. Action plan. Embracing the pathless path.
We've covered a truly expansive landscape today, diving deep into Paul Millard's transformative insights. Now let's distill these into practical, actionable steps you, our listener, can start taking today, right where you are, to begin shaping your own pathless journey.
First, and maybe most fundamentally, question the default. Actively, consciously challenge those ingrained assumptions about how your life should go. Remember the life script. Graduate, good job, marry, has kids, by a certain age. Ask yourself, are these truly your desires or absorbed expectations? If you dread Mondays, is it the job or the unquestioned belief work must be a certain way? Recognizing the rigid good egg job is just one option, not necessarily best for you, is the crucial first step to liberation.
Second, reflect. Break out of autopilot. Create that daily reminder of priorities. Health, relationships, fun and creativity, career in that order. Use it to revisit values. Identify gaps between what you claim to care about and how you invest time and energy. What conversation are you ignoring? Daily reflection keeps you aligned.
Third, figure out what you have to offer. Shift focus from lack. Ask close friends, when have you seen me at my best self? Their surprising responses reveal unique impact, strengths, qualities that shine when you're authentic. An empowering external perspective.
Fourth, pause and disconnect. Absolutely vital. Intentionally step away from stress, a 10-minute walk, sit in silence. Create space. Pay attention to feelings, thoughts emerging when you disconnect. Subtle cues about deeper desires, unmet needs, suffering you ignore. Clarity often emerges in pauses.
Fifth, go make a friend. Strategic connection. Venture outside your bubble. Seek path experts. People on interesting, unconventional paths. Ask how they started, what motivates them, how they navigate uncertainty. Most are eager to share. Even one supportive friend understanding your quest is transformative.
Sixth, go make something. Remember, you are creative. Don't wait for permission or the perfect idea. The act of creation itself fuels self-discovery. Host a dinner, journal, write, paint, organize an event. The medium matters less than the act. Creating uncovers your unique contributions, what ignites your spirit.
Seventh, give generously. Practice generosity as a skill, not just finance. Challenge scarcity mindset by giving without expecting immediate return time, knowledge, kindness. Helps understand your enough. Fosters deeper connections, abundance, reciprocity. Remember, the gift economy creates bonds beyond money. Be open to receiving, too.
ACE, experiment. Essential on the pathless path. Embrace freedom to test different ways of working, living, taking breaks, approaching goals. Objective isn't a fixed destination. It's continuous learning, iterating life's design, discovering through experience what makes you alive, aligns with values. Every experiment offers invaluable data.
Ninth, commit. Seems counterintuitive, but commit to the process of discovery, the real work of your life. Identify things that challenge you, bring meaning you feel compelled to commit to indefinitely. Find work making you feel useful, engaged, alive. Create an environment for these to flourish, even if it means saying no elsewhere.
And finally, number 10, be patient. The pathless path is slow, nonlinear, unique. No timeline or finish line. Embrace the ninth path mentality. If 8 approaches don't work, keep searching, experimenting. It took Millard years to quit, more years of exploration. Your pace is your own, measured by depth, authenticity, not speed. Thank you for joining us today for this deep dive into the pathless path.
Remember, the inherent discomfort of stepping into the unknown, leaving the default path, is precisely the forge where a life uniquely yours of true meaning and purpose is created. What deeply held assumption about your life or work are you ready to question today?
We encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shaping your own path, whatever that may look like, one courageous step at a time. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to our next deep dive with you.